Fulfillment or regret? Fulfillment or regret? Fulfillment or regret? I want to talk to you briefly about why this question is my obsession, why since the moment I thought to ask this question, I have not been able to stop obsessively asking this question of myself, of others, and even of myself for others. Over the last 2 years, I've taken a business that was doing close to $60 million a year, had about 180 employees, and I have, along with my wife who runs it with me, we have completely, I wouldn't say we've destroyed it, but on the surface, it kind of looks that way. We've stripped it down. Today, it does about 1/10 of the revenue that it used to do, and it's only got 12 employees. And the reason we did that is because we asked ourselves, fulfillment or regret. And we realized that the business we had was tracking for regret and we wanted fulfillment. The business we have now helps other people ask the same question and try to answer in the affirmative for fulfillment. This question has become the dominant question of my life. It is the question around which this YouTube channel is being built. It's the question that if you're interested in answering for yourself, I'll invite you to subscribe and follow along as this channel grows. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how this question came to be, like I said, and I'll briefly tell you who I am, but who I am is not really so important as how I can serve you potentially in answering this question, or at least asking it of yourself and seeking an answer. But anyway, this question came to be through 3 books that I read. The first was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Great book. If you've never read it, Viktor Frankl was a prisoner in Auschwitz during World War II, one of the Nazi concentration camps, and he noticed that the thing that seemed to do people in, the thing that seemed to precede the death of the camp prisoners was when they gave up on the idea that there was any meaning or purpose left to hang on for. And he noticed that when people lose the sense of meaning in their life, that's literally the beginning of losing their life altogether. And he developed from that, he survived Auschwitz and developed a whole branch of psychology called logotherapy, which is all around the search for meaning in our life and how we're able to navigate through life's challenges and in particular, psychological hardships if we can start to find meaning and extract meaning and attach meaning to our suffering, right? This idea of meaningful suffering. I think it's interesting to note that the root word of passion is from the Latin word passio, which means suffering, and that passion is this, in my mind, it's this transmutation of suffering into meaning or purpose, suffering for a purpose. The only true suffering is meaningless suffering. If we can find meaning in our pain, it's no longer suffering. It can be converted into passion, and it becomes the beginning of something great, potentially, right? That's this whole essence. But this concept of fulfillment or regret, I use the term fulfillment to mean from the Old English fulfillon, which is the word for prophecy or destiny, this idea that we have a calling or a purpose, and that fulfillment, this feeling that we want to feel better, we want to feel fulfilled, right? I want a more fulfilling job, I want a more fulfilling marriage, I want a more fulfilling life. What we want is to feel as if we are fulfilling our calling, fulfilling our purpose. That is how we extract meaning from our life, particularly from the hard things in our life. In this book, Man's Search for Meaning, combined with an understanding of what the word fulfillment truly means, that it comes from a sense of a prophecy or a destiny or a calling for our life, helped me understand, okay, fulfillment, that is the aim of life. And 2 years ago, when we transformed our business, it was because we wanted to transform our business into something that was the fulfillment of our calling and that could also help others fulfill their calling. And I'm not here to shoot a video about our business, but I just sort of want to indicate the extreme measures that one can go to when they put this question at the forefront of their life. The next book that I read that challenged me to ask this question, fulfillment or regret, was Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, of which the number one regret of people on their deathbeds is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself rather than the expectations of others. And so that gives us the counterpoint to fulfillment, regret, right? That we have this choice. Our entire life is a choice. It's a journey to make a decision, to choose a path, the path of fulfillment, to look for our purpose. And then having discovered it, we develop that sense of purpose and we spend the rest of our days trying to live it out. Otherwise, we will end our life in regret. And that's what Top 5 Regrets of the Dying showed me. When Bronnie Ware, the lady who wrote the book, talks about people saying, I wish I'd had the courage to be true to myself and to live my life. What she's saying is, it's people saying to her And to others in that space, in the palliative care field, which is where she got all of her data, it's people saying at the end of their life, I wish I had had the courage to live my true purpose, to look at the meaning of my life experiences and point it towards something that was courageously and authentically me. But instead, I allowed the expectations of others to govern my life until now, at this moment on my deathbed, and I'm out of time. That is the counterpoint. The alternative is regret. And I truly believe life is simply a journey to find our purpose, and once confronted with our purpose, to have to choose fulfillment of that purpose or regret knowing that we didn't choose fulfillment of our purpose. Mark Twain said that the two most important days of a man's life are the day that he's born and the day that he discovers why. I believe that second day, if we haven't achieved that second day, then the point of life is to reach that second day. And once we've achieved that second day, then the point of life is to live out what we discovered on that second day, the reason why we're here, our purpose. And our purpose is to find our purpose and to fulfill our purpose once it is found. And if we do not, we will end in regret. There's a concept in psychology called psychosocial development theory, developed by a guy named Erik Erikson. And once again, we find this same concept that the last stage of life is something he calls ego integrity versus despair. What does that really mean? Ego integrity, being in integrity with my true self, my ego in the psychological sense, or else what? Despair, regret, tomato, tomato, right? It's the knowing that I am running out of time and I did not live my true calling. This question, fulfillment or regret, I think it is the most important question that we are forced to ask ourselves. We do ourselves harm to shy away from or not to face or confront, and that sadly so many of us are dying not by physical death, but simply dying slowly by not truly living, because true life is seeking purpose and fulfilling what we find. The third book that I want to reference that was really impactful for me in developing this understanding of this was The 8th Habit by Stephen Covey. And in the 8th Habit, if you're familiar with Stephen Covey, you probably know the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? And that's kind of a game plan or a playbook for how to navigate life and be successful or effective is his term. But this 8th habit, to find your voice and use it to inspire others to find theirs. I believe finding your voice and finding your purpose are two sides of the same coin. And when I read that book and I came to understand that as part of this quest for purpose, I am called to not only find it, but then as I live it out, I will inspire others to seek their purpose and to live out their purpose. The same concept, right? And that is one thing I will say. I mentioned the business. Over the last 2 years, my wife and I have helped hundreds of people do this type of inquiry, find their purpose, and then practically work on how to construct their life so that they can actually live out and manifest their purpose in their life. And one thing that I can say that every single human's purpose has in common is that there is an aspect of it that is a fractal, that as we find our purpose and we begin living out our purpose, we will inspire the next person and the next person, the next person to find their purpose and live out their purpose. Just like Stephen Covey was talking about finding your voice and then using it to inspire others to find theirs. So as we find our purpose and we actually live it out in the world, it's not just finding it, but it's actually living it. That inspires others to seek theirs. And then, what we're trying to do is support as many people to not just find it, but actually live it out. And that's a practical concern, right? Which kind of brings me to the content of this YouTube channel. It's easy to say, I think I know my purpose and I'm going to live it out, but shoot, I actually got to be up early in the morning. I got work, I got bills to pay. I don't know, maybe I'll have to deal with purpose next year, right? That's kind of most people's lives. And so what we take on in the work that we do and what this channel is going to be trying to give as much information as possible to support with is how do we actually practically construct a life in which we can live out our purpose. In our methodology, we refer to purpose as the fourth P. The first three Ps are physical, personal, and professional daily living, right? Our physical, personal, and professional lives, that's what we have to wake up and do every day. And the idea is to orient all of that and to structure all of that and to apply intention to all of that for the purpose of living our purpose. And our belief is that that is where fulfillment comes from. That feeling, that hole in our heart that we're constantly trying to plug things into, material things, sensational things, feelings, addictions, sensations, experiences, escapes, distractions. We're always trying to fill that void. That void is in the shape of fulfillment. You might call it God. That's fine. If God's the one that gave you your purpose, like we're not here to abstract what a person has to believe in, although we do suggest that purpose must come from something other than ourselves, because otherwise we're just hedonistic and landing on whatever feels good. But from there, where we go from there is we will no longer want for all these things when we're able to fill that hole in our heart that's the shape of our purpose with the daily living of purpose. But then practically, we have to construct our life to support that. And so on this YouTube channel, we're going to have a few playlists. I'm going to, obviously this is an invitation for you to subscribe. One of those playlists is a methodology, or it's going to be about a methodology that we've developed called life design. And life design is this practical operating system for your life that allows you to develop your physical, personal, and professional life and be able to orient it towards your fourth P of purpose. And look, within that, making money. I mean, a lot of what I'm known for, if you've ever seen me online, you've probably seen these ads of me talking about home-based business and alternative ways to generate income outside of a job or whatnot. But it's all to the ends of purpose. It's not money as a means in and of itself. But a lot of the life design methodology does take on this very practical reality of how to pay bills, home-based businesses, online businesses, entrepreneurship. A lot of the life design methodology is kind of based at its core on taking an entrepreneurial approach to the totality of life. Entrepreneurs, we operate in certain time intervals. We set certain types of targets. We assign metrics and values and variables to all these different conditions in our business, what we call KPIs, key performance indicators, OKRs, objectives and key results. There's all these sort of operating systems for entrepreneurship. And the concept of life design very much is to just take that mentality and apply it to the totality of a life: physical, personal, professional, and ultimately purpose. And that's what we'll be teaching in the life design videos on this channel. We're also going to be taking on a lot to do with relationships. One of my sort of psychology mentor, not literal mentors, he didn't mentor me personally, he was dead before I was born, but a guy named Alfred Adler famously said that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. And I very much believe that the biggest factor in our long-term quality of life is the quality of our relationships. And there's going to be a lot of content on this channel about how to optimize and improve relationships so that ultimately they can be supportive of us living our purpose and us being supportive of others living their purpose through these really, really synergistic and high-value relationships that we can develop through primarily communication skills. So that's going to be a lot of what that content focuses on. And then finally, we're going to be dealing with the hard realities of living in a material world, and we'll have quite a bit of content on business, finance, and investing, kind of the money and wealth creation stuff. A lot of our methodology is based around this concept called the 4 phases of wealth creation: stability, value creation, freedom, and legacy. And there's a lot to each of those, but we'll be unpacking that as well here on this channel. So, all that to say, this video has already been longer than I intended, but if you are at least open to the idea that this question of fulfillment or regret, it is the question of life. It is the question that hangs over all of us every single day, and that every day we run out of a little bit more time to conclusively answer what our end of life experience will be: fulfillment or regret. If you believe that as I do, or you're at least open to taking on that belief, trying it out, and walking this road with me here on this channel to see if maybe it can give you a little different feeling or a little different experience of life, then I do invite you to subscribe. And I will simply commit for my part and others that contribute to the channel that we are going to pull out all the stops to give you everything that we can to help you answer this question for yourself: fulfillment or regret, and hopefully inspire you to begin inspiring others to ask and answer the same question for themselves too. I do very much hope that this channel can be the start of a movement around this fundamental question, and that if we're successful, we can help many, many people be able to answer by the end of their lives: fulfillment, yes, not regret. Thanks. Go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the channel. Take care.